Delaware has no shortage of ideas when it comes to strengthening our economy. But what does it take to turn those ideas into real solutions? Who leads that work, and how do we hold ourselves accountable? I've said it before, we need a big, hairy, audacious goal, one that pushes us beyond incremental change. Because while Delaware has a lot to be proud of, we're at a crossroads. And the biggest risk isn't a lack of ideas, it's the status quo. In this episode, we explore the Delaware State Chamber Foundation and how it's working to move from conversation to action. Mark Hutton, one of the foundation's founding trustees, joins me to talk about why we stood it up, the role it plays as a convener, and how this work can help position Delaware as a top state for job creation, economic activity, and quality of life. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Delaware Deep Dive, a podcast by the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Kelly Basil, and today I'm joined by a founding trustee of the Delaware State Chamber Foundation, which is the State Chamber's nonpartisan research affiliate. For those who may not be familiar, the Delaware State Chamber Foundation supports research, programs, and initiatives that advance Delaware's economic climate and the prosperity of all Delawareans. So I'm very glad to have Mark Hutton, head of business banking and Delaware Regional President of M&T Bank, with me today. He has been along for pretty much the whole ride with me in creating the Delaware State Chamber Foundation. Mark, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kelly. The streets are abuzz in Wilmington with anticipation for this podcast today, so really excited to be here.
It has been a long time coming. Mark and I have been trying to get this on the calendar for probably a year now, so really happy it's happening. All right, before we really dive into the focus of this episode, which is our foundation, I like to give our guests an opportunity to share with listeners who they are and a little bit about their roles and organizations. So why don't we start with that, Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Again, thanks for having me. Awesome to be here. Sorry it took a little while to get it scheduled.
Not your fault.
I own that, and I'll take it. I'm pleased to be the regional leader for M&T Bank, serving as regional president, representing our 1,800 colleagues across M&T Bank and Wilmington Trust here in Delaware. The building right down the street that we're looking at is our regional headquarters, and really awesome team there. Great momentum we have in the market. It's a really exciting place to be and time to be representing M&T and Wilmington Trust here in Delaware. I'd also say that my other hat that I'm currently wearing is the head of business banking. That's a relatively new role for me across the enterprise of M&T Bank, the 27 different regions of which Delaware is one. So that's been a recent addition to my responsibilities in the last 6 months, and it's created just a ton of growth and learning opportunities, and I love it every day.
That's awesome. How many people, sorry if you don't know the exact answer, but about how many people work in Delaware for M&T?
About 1,800 colleagues today.
1,800. Wow, that's a lot. And then you're in charge of that plus the entire enterprise.
Our business banking team works with small business customers across our footprint.
Yeah.
So think of anything from a startup to a company that has $20 million in revenue. Mm-hmm. That's generally the sweet spot for our business banking team.
Yes, yeah. I know you consistently rank very high for small business loans, so I know small businesses are a huge piece of your business model. Absolutely.
We are extremely proud of SBA lending in particular. That's a very visible way that we support small businesses in combination with the government and using their programs. We were number one last year in Delaware for the 15th year in a row, at least, we believe, since we've acquired Wilmington Trust and merged with our partners there. And also number one across our aggregated footprint. So if you look at all the areas where M&T does business, we were the number one lender on an aggregated basis for the first time. So exciting time to be a part of business banking at M&T Bank.
All right, so let's jump into the foundation, the Delaware State Chamber Foundation. I kind of want to just set the scene, lay the groundwork. But like I said, you've been a part of this process, and I should probably back up just a little bit and let everyone know the Chamber has had a 501c3 affiliate since the 80s, long time. Known to many as the partnership, and that was specifically working in the education and workforce development space. So some of the programs people know well: Superstars in Education and Training, Delaware Principal for a Day, recently Intern Delaware. So a lot of programs that people are quite familiar with were kind of under that arm. But last year and a half, I want to say, we've been taking a lot of steps to transition that entity into what is now the Delaware State Chamber Foundation. And as I said, you were a part of that entire process. You co-chaired the partnership board with us. You're a founding board trustee of what is now the foundation. So I kind of want to walk people through that journey of how we got there. And so I'll pose a question to you now. To start, what gap or gaps do you see in Delaware that made creating the foundation a necessary move by the state chamber?
It's a great question. And first of all, I'm very thankful to be along on this journey with you and the others on the team, right? As I think about the history of myself with the state chamber in various forums, started simply coming to events when I was the first M&T Bank employee in Delaware back in 2008. And then, as time goes on, you build a lot of connections through the great programming and networking events of the chamber. Was pleased to join the board of trustees. Probably 6 years ago now, and also staying very involved through the partnership. So it's been an incredible journey, and it gives me a great perspective to share what I feel are some of the impactful things that the chamber, now the foundation, will be able to do to support the state. So in terms of gaps that existed and why the foundation is important, I think it's first important to acknowledge, as you did, the partnership and all the great programming and the great work that our partnership board did for many years through various programs. And while the programs were very special and hold a deep place in my own heart, and I think a lot of folks are attached to them, what we didn't see from the partnership was meaningful progress or impact in terms of moving the needle for competitiveness in the state, and also really giving our business community an elevated voice in shaping the agenda that will drive competitiveness going forward. So from that perspective, the shifting efforts from the partnership, and while also maintaining some of those events with new partners outside of the chamber umbrella and so forth, has been really impactful to create a bias towards action and some urgency around what's most important to the constituents of the chamber, which are the business owners and business large employers in the state.
Yeah, I would agree with you. We, in 2024, put out our annual membership survey, and some of the feedback that we got from that came when we were in our strategic planning process. So it was really valuable input at that time. It's always valuable, but it was very valuable in 2024. And I don't know that this is necessarily unique to the chamber. I think it's unique to a lot of issues in Delaware. But there's not a lack of good ideas. There's sometimes a lack in coordination and making sure that those good ideas have actionable steps that help them come to fruition. And so we took this as an opportunity, hearing from our members that they want to see the chamber make meaningful adjustments that help Delaware employers and employees live more fruitful lives. And so, that happens in a couple of different ways, right? So there's the chamber, our 501c6, and that is, I think, the way the public see the chamber traditionally. It's your networking events that help create connections and partnerships. It's our lobbying activities. So showing up in Dover and advocating for businesses, making sure that laws and regulations are business friendly. But then there's the other piece of it, which is a void that I think we're trying to fill. And that's the research and data that help make those policy decisions more informed before it's passed into a law. So, there's no lack of good ideas, as I said. Can we look at this great idea and put some data behind it that helps people, look at this and go, okay, option A or option B, and these are the people that need to be at the table to do one or the other. So that's what this foundation is now trying to do. We're moving a little bit away from programming and more towards gathering that data and collaborative input so that we can kind of lay the options on the table and say, okay, here's the challenge we're trying to address, and here are all the ways that we could approach it. And kind of letting the players pick what they think is the right path, and collaborate to really, a year down the road, 5 years down the road, say, okay, that decision, that action moved the needle. And so that's really what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, and look, I think you nailed it. There's no shortage of good ideas, and there's no shortage of people throughout the state and throughout our business community that would love to help execute on this, because we're all vested in what's good for Delaware. We know it's good for our businesses as well. And what's uniquely possible now because of the foundation is having one source of truth for the data that's going to help drive decisions. I can tell you, sitting in lots of different forums with business leaders and executives across the state, there's no shortage of information. And sometimes, you have to, scratch your head a little bit when you see information that might conflict with other data that you've been using to help drive decisions. So this foundation and the investment we're making in the foundation will help to drive that source of truth, so that we are all oriented on the same foundation as we decide how to go forward.
Yeah, and I think so you just hinted at something that I think is important to bluntly say, but the foundation is nonpartisan, and that's a really key word. It is purely and solely focused on the facts.
That's right.
Gathering unbiased, accurate, up-to-date information. It's not the agenda. It's the aggregate of information. The chamber is bipartisan. That's, again, as I mentioned, the lobbying activities. And so the way that the two entities, if you will, work together, the foundation is going to help us, take deeper dives, go down rabbit holes on topics that the business community is telling us have challenges within. I'll give an example, and I might be jumping a little bit ahead, but I'm just going to go straight to government mandates and regulations. It's the number one issue that all of our members, year after year, report to us. And so we need a space to be able to tackle that. And so that's where the foundation can kind of look at this and, assess what exactly, permitting is such a huge word. So what does that mean to have problems with permitting? And so to your point, there's no lack of information, and sometimes it helps to have someone that can sift through it and help kind of compose it in a more digestible way. And help guide people through something. And so, the foundation's going to collect all of that, figure it out, be the problem solver, and then lay it out on the table, which is where the chamber can come in and say, okay, that's a good idea. Let's go turn that into a bill, or let's go turn that into regulatory change within state government. And so that's where the agenda, if you will, comes in.
Right. And I think of the foundation, comparing and contrasting the foundation from the chamber itself, foundation's deliverables, really that strategic plan, that future-looking vision for the state and how we remain competitive today, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, acknowledging that the world around us is changing faster than we've been changing. So there's this mandate for us to create that future vision in a way that's really compelling and really focus on future-proofing the economy and the employment community around Delaware. So when you layer that look to the horizon, right, that future vision with how do we execute today and make sure that through the chamber now we are dealing with very relevant and timely issues that are on the ground today. There's an intersection there that we'll figure out together, but without that strategic plan for the state and for the business community, we can't be sure that all the efforts of the chamber today are moving us towards our desired future state.
That's a great point. And kind of, again, a function of the foundation is making sure that we track progress. Again, another void that we're trying to fill. We put out in 2025 for the first time our competitiveness blue book. put it out again this past January. And that is, a compilation of different tables of economic indicators. And I think there's 65 plus different pieces of measurement of how Delaware as a state kind of compares to the other states in the country, our neighbors. And so that's been a really helpful tool, again, in helping us kind of be more armed in our decision making. We want to take that and make it into a dashboard that's more interactive, an online tool that's available for everyone. So that way, when policy and regulatory decisions are being made, just like you said, can we look back and see if that helped or did it hurt the state? And so being able in one place to look at this and make sure that our decisions are moving us in the right direction, are making our state more competitive, helping people, make more income, live a more fulfilling life, have access to really good employment opportunities. These are things that we want to take a look at and be able to benchmark.
Exactly. And that competitive dashboard, that compilation of many data
you said
points.
That word so easily.
It's a banking term we use a lot. So that compilation of those various data points is something that, again, will serve as a foundation not only for the work of the chamber, but if you think about the other organizations that just have the very best interests of Delaware in mind, right? And I'm a part of many of these organizations too. So, but if you think about the Delaware Prosperity Partnership, you think about the Business Roundtable, you think about Rodell, some of the industry associations that are out there, I think it's really important to highlight that the State Chamber Foundation is not competing or looking to build overlap with the bodies of work that these really awesome organizations are already doing to benefit Delaware and their respective constituents. But we're looking to collaborate and convene and provide data that can help make better decisions collectively. And we're really confident that we're on the right track to do that.
Yeah, you bring up another great point and led me into my next question, which I don't really need to ask now, but that is a question as we talk about the foundation that we get a lot. Are we duplicating work? The answer is no. It's more building off of what already exists. And I love to give like a hard example. So the Roundtable is a huge partner of the chambers. We work very closely together. And they put out the investment agenda a couple years ago. It has really good information, very, very helpful insights. Now, we can take pieces of that within that agenda and say, okay, they've identified permitting as something that needs to be addressed in Delaware. Okay, let's figure out what that means. So now we can take this piece and drive it a little bit further and figure out what are those steps and who needs to be a part of that process to, for lack of a better term, get it across the finish line. So those are that's an example of something that we would tackle. And you're right, the organizations that you listed are all partners in this. We want to make sure that we're working collaboratively because Delaware's small. There's no need to be working in silos.
We can make things happen quick.
You really can. And so we see this again as a tool to be able to do that. So getting back to, again, the feedback of our members. So we put out an annual survey. It's just one of the many tools that we use to make sure that we're really plugged into the business community and what are their concerns. And so kind of those top challenges, I'll list them for you. And this is in order from what we gathered from the survey, but government mandates and regulations, the cost of doing business, government leadership, education, workforce development, and healthcare. Those are the top issues that the business community is identifying right now. The list the last couple of years has pretty much been those topics. It's not a big surprise, although I have to say, two big things that jumped out at me this year when we got those results. The first being that regulations didn't move. It's been consistently the top issue now year over year. So there's something there that we really need to work on. The other takeaway from that survey is the cost of doing business jumped way up this year. So that is becoming a growing concern for business people, that it's becoming more and more expensive every year to operate a business. So I just would love for you to react to that and provide your perspective.
It's a great list, but I'm not surprised that those are the issues that are rising to the top. And I think of this list through a few different lenses. First, I think about what's, as a leader of the bank, which one of these are most relevant for me as a personal business leader or leader of my own business. But then I also think about it through the lens of our customers, which is probably the more important lens. We are pleased to have a great representation of clients across the state. Over 100,000 individuals or businesses in Delaware do business with M&T Bank and Wilmington Trust. So that gives us a pretty broad view, excuse me, on the issues that are impacting the state and what's relevant to folks. So I'll use that second frame as I respond to this.
Sure.
When you think about government mandates and regulations, that impacts every single customer that we have or any other bank might have or anyone who lives or works in the state, right? So those are really important. And with respect to having a voice in that process and making sure that there's communication and transparency around how changes are being made and how our government leaders are thinking about changes, there's more to do there, right? There's a missing link in some ways in terms of the communication and transparency that's available to folks. When you think about the cost of doing business, that's one that affects us greatly at the bank. And I would also say ease of doing business, cost and ease together. I'm very fortunate that M&T Bank and Wilmington Trust are extremely committed to downtown Wilmington and the state of Delaware. We're not going anywhere. I'll say that publicly, but there are lots and lots of options for companies who are looking to invest, and especially along our I-95 corridor here through Wilmington. Lots of options. It's a very competitive world, right? So if we're not paying attention to the cost and ease of doing business in a very intentional way, then there's a real risk that folks will see a better option, 10 miles down the road in Maryland or 10 miles up the road in Pennsylvania. And that's what we need to avoid in order to maintain our advantages and continue to grow here. I also think about workforce development being part and parcel to that. It's incumbent on us to create pathways to the right future talent levels and right skill sets that make Delaware just a no-brainer for companies to choose as they think about their location decisions, right? And that's something that's very top of mind for me. Whether it's keeping younger talent in state, harkening back to Intern Delaware, for instance, a program that was part of the partnership, whether it's developing current talent or really listening to the business community to understand what skill sets are very important
right
now and perhaps anticipating those needs in the future and building programming to get there. That is something that, again, because we're a small state and because we are nimble, we should have a first mover advantage on all day, every day. So that's those issues are really relevant, and all of them very important, both as I'm wearing my hat at the bank and also thinking through our customers.
Yeah, and so when you look at, you mentioned businesses choosing to locate here. It's also businesses choosing to stay here, expand here. That's all what factors into considering a state, quote, competitive.
That's right.
And the topics that I listed, again, mandates and regulations, cost of doing business, education, workforce development, healthcare. Those are all things that site selectors and employers are looking at when they're choosing to locate or expand in a state. Those are some of the very, very top factors. And so if we're not constantly paying attention to those things and making sure that it remains competitive, but also, as you said, anticipate what's coming. What is the future of work? Are we making sure that we're preparing people for that? So it's something that you just can't lose sight of.
And that's why I love the clean nature of this compilation, the competitiveness dashboard, right? in 5 minutes, someone can look at that and tell how we're doing with a very informed view, and then pick out the areas where there's an opportunity to do a lot better and how can we get there fastest.
Absolutely. Okay, next question. One thing I often say about both the Chamber and the Foundation is that we serve as a convener. We bring together stakeholders from across a wide range of industries and perspectives to look at issues holistically and develop thoughtful, well-rounded solutions. In your view, how important is that role of convening, and what does meaningful collaboration look like when you're solving these complex issues?
These are adaptive, complex issues. So I think the convening role is critically important. If we're not creating forums for communication, but more importantly, creating safe space for folks to speak their mind, then we're really missing the challenge of leadership that exists in the state. So that role can't be understated, and it's truly important that we invite, I'd say, diverse thought, diverse perspective. When you think about the state, you have some natural us versus them scenarios that exist. I'm upstate, I'm downstate. It's really just the state, right? We need to make it about us as a collective group of Delaware leaders, and not necessarily lean into some of the natural thought mechanisms that we have in place to create us versus them scenarios. That's counterproductive to the goal of creating a better future for all of us.
Yeah, I agree with that. There are people who live here, right? And they need the state to work for them and their families. Yeah. There's employers here who can't just pick up their business and move across borders. They need Delaware to work. And so there are so many people that are invested in that greater cause. And I agree that us versus them is not productive. Yeah. But that really sets me up for kind of my last question for you. And I want to make sure that this is an actionable conversation for our listeners. So for those who are hearing about the foundation, maybe for the first time, and find this to be interesting and want to maybe play a larger role in that work, whether that's a business leader or a community partner, as a board of trustee, how would you recommend that they get involved?
Well, first I'd say come up with your own ideas, right? Share your feedback. Be a part of the data set that helps to drive change and provide the context within which we're going to create change as a team going forward. We're up to a handful of founding board members now. Most of us are well known in the business community and easy to find. So I would welcome personally, and I'm sure my colleagues would as well, outreach from anyone in our networks today, or anyone who might not be in our network already but wants to be or wants to have their voice heard. Bring it right to the board members, right? That's part of our role, to help make sure that we're engaging with the community in a way that is most relevant. And it's also incumbent on us to create very structured ways that folks can be a part of this movement, I'll call it, to drive data and drive change and accountability in the state. So we will soon be coming out with structured ways for people to join, whether it's membership tiers or advisory committees or steering committees. We haven't quite decided exactly what we'll call it yet.
Workshopping.
Yeah, that's right. But we have a big whiteboard with lots of great ideas on it, and we will absolutely welcome and we in fact require feedback from the local community, and especially if you feel like your voice is not being heard today, or you don't have access to some of the forums that already exist. This is the one for you.
I would also say, there, and thank you for sharing kind of what that structure will soon look like. The way I love to pitch the foundation right now to people, it has so much startup energy, and yet it's housed under an established organization. And so with that comes a lot of opportunity to, like you said, just bring your ideas to the table and help create what this can look like. And one of the work streams that the foundation's currently working on is centered in the education space. We have a survey that went out recently, both to employers and then also residents in Delaware, to really just gain a better understanding of people's views on education. That was a study that there will also be a podcast episode about, so stay tuned. But Mercury Analytics helped us professionally survey people so that we can really gain a better understanding of how people, as I said, view education and what can we do about that. Again, benchmarking is really important too. So this is going to help us track year to year to make sure that the changes we're making are in the right direction. That all started from just a conversation with a member. That wasn't someone who was already involved in the foundation. They are just a chamber member. And so there are so many more of those scenarios that could take place as long as people are willing to engage and, as you said, share their ideas. So while there's a structured way to get involved in the foundation, this is even a part of a chamber membership, and we are all ears.
Right. And look, I think there's a really exciting future for Delaware, right? So I know as we begin to wrap this up, there's this growth mindset that's optional, but also required of us as we think about how do we become the most competitive state and build the best quality of life and build the best workforce of the future and remove all the barriers and obstacles that we know get in the way of some of that today. So it's a really exciting time to be both here in Delaware and to be part of the State Chamber Foundation.
I totally agree. It's very exciting. All right, before I let you go, I have a question, and then also we have a task for you. Okay. So the question is, if people really loved what you had to say, or hated, hopefully loved, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, I am easy to find. So our office is right down the street, 1100 North Market. I am very active on LinkedIn. And my email address, mhutton@mtb.com, is I check it all the time. So would welcome outreach from anyone listening today who's interested in this topic, who has feedback around the foundation or feedback around the bank, candidly. So easy to find.
Perfect. Now, the official conclusion of this episode is a cookie exchange. So Mark and I are both chocolate chip cookie enthusiasts, I should say.
Aficionados.
Yeah. I personally have been on the hunt for the best chocolate chip cookie in downtown Wilmington for some time now. I believe I found it. And Mark recently told me that he knows where the best cookie downtown is. So we're going to exchange cookies and find out which one's better.
Okay. Well, there's no such thing as a bad chocolate chip cookie, right?
That is also true.
So we're in a great spot here. But our cafeteria team in the Wilmington Trust Center here in downtown Wilmington does a great job with these cookies. And Mondays they bake them fresh.
Mine is from Bean by Bardea in Deco. It's got a little sea salt on top. Now, typically I would microwave it for 12 seconds exactly. I think that really completes the cookie.
It's really good.
This is also really good.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to compare. They're different. They're different takes on perfection here. So
I would completely agree with that. The sea salt really makes the Bean by Bardea. But your cookie, it's got the perfect crunch and yet gooiness.
Right.
So.
Right. A little more butter flavor. Forward, right?
Butter forward. Mark, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. This is really exciting. If anyone has questions, suggestions on future episode topics, or if you know where the best cookie in downtown Wilmington is, or in Delaware, we can absolutely widen our search. You can get in touch with me. My contact information is on our website, dscc.com. You can also find the Chamber on social media, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. And with that, thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Delaware Deep Dive, brought to you by the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce. Before we sign off, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen. I know podcast hosts say this all the time, but your support is invaluable, and it helps other listeners easily find us. I'm your host, Kelly Basil. We'll see you soon.